people want to see the Democratic Party fight. And I'll tell you, when the stakes are so high, they've higher than they've ever been, if they don't see our party fighting now and resisting at this moment, how in the hell are they going to believe us when they say, but put us in power and we'll fight for you then? No, we need to be in this fight right now. We need to stand up with our brothers and sisters in the movement, in solidarity, pushing back as hard as we can against what we're seeing from Trump and Musk.
Hello, and welcome to the PoliticsGirl podcast. I'm your host, Lee McGowan. Let's get into it. Well, the Democrats had a tough year. Not only did they lose the 2024 election, or at least didn't question the loss, the people seem to have lost faith in them. And as we watch Donald Trump and his team systematically dismantle our government and listen to the vice president and the Speaker of the House talk about ignoring the Constitution to give the executive branch complete power to act without checks and balances, the Democratic Party seems unprepared or perhaps unwilling to be the opposition that we need. Now, saying that, there are many aspects to the Democratic Party. It's not just the representatives in Congress, some who are not in leadership but are really stepping up and fighting back. But we also have these amazing Democratic governors who are standing firm for their states and the rule of law and the importance of federalism in the face of tyranny. We have local Democrats and state Democrats and all the various committees from the DCCC to the DSCC. But when people think of the party, especially in the absence of a clear leader, it is the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, that they think of as leadership, whether that's true or not. So today I'm going to have a conversation with the newly elected leader of that organization, Ken Martin, to see what he has to say about the future of the opposition party and meeting this moment in American history. As far as his background, Ken Martin began his political career in 1990 as an intern for U.S. Senator from Minnesota Paul Wellstone, and later interned in Wellstone's office, organizing college campuses for the Clinton-Gore campaign and working in Kansas politics before returning to Minnesota to serve as the political and field director for the Minnesota Democratic Farm Labor Party. Ken went on to become the president of the Association of State Democratic Committees and vice chair of the DNC before winning the election to become chair of the DNC this month. Ken ran on the idea that the Democratic Party needed a leader who could connect with the working class voters and restore people's faith in the party. So without further ado, please welcome my guest, lifelong Democrat, political organizer, and newly elected chair of the DNC, Ken Martin. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you, Lee. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, thanks for joining me. I mean, honestly, I wish it was under better circumstances and we could just have a conversation about how to get the party to help more people around the country. But you're joining me at a time of crisis. So I think that's what we need to address.
Yes, for sure. We do need to address the crisis. And there's a lot going on, of course, in Washington right now that we have to resist and fight back. But as I've said, we also can walk and chew gum at the same time, meaning we need to give people a sense in this country of who we are as Democrats, what we're fighting for and why at the same time. And so, I think, we've seen Trump and Musk in recent days, of course, really throw a lot of folks off kilter with all of the stuff that they're doing in Washington, D.C. It's hard to land the right punch, right? And that's part of what we're doing right now is really convening people and mobilizing folks, not just our elected officials, but others in advocacy spaces and in the movement spaces to figure out how do we resist the right way so we're landing the right punch, right? And of course, the DNC plays a big role in that. And so, we have one goal as a Democratic Party, right? Of course, we are part of a movement of folks fighting for economic and social justice, human rights, and civil rights. But our one goal and role within the movement is, of course, to win elections. And so while we're resisting Donald Trump, we also have to build the infrastructure to win. And that's what I'm almost exclusively focused on right now.
Yeah, good. To win. I mean, that's the thing, right? We can't just be, perfect little soldiers who do everything exactly by the book and check off every box. We have to actually win as well, right? And despite what people might think, the DNC is not the leading arm of the Democratic Party. They are one part of Democratic leadership in combination with many other parts. Your predecessor once told me the DNC is one piece in a 12-piece pie. But when people think of the Democrats, especially when we don't have a leader, the president or someone we can look to as being our leader, people do look to the DNC as being in charge, whether that's true or not. Now, to me, the DNC has yet to rise to that offer of leadership, but maybe now at this tipping point that we're living in, that could change. How do you see the DNC's role at this moment in time?
Well, as I mentioned, I mean, it's really, we have to get the DNC out of DC. And what do I mean by that? Some folks think, well, what are you saying? You're trying to move the DC headquarters out of DC? No, it's really a mind shift, right? We can't be a party that's focused just on 7 battleground states and a handful of congressional races, right? We have to take a more holistic view on how we build power, right, around our agenda. The conservative movement understood this years ago. What they understood is that they are going to actually compete in every public policy arena throughout this country. And think about this, Lee. In 2022, the Democrats did not contest over half of the elections on the ballot.
I know, Ken. It's ridiculous,
Yeah,
honestly.
right. And these were races for, local elections, city councils, school boards, county boards, township offices, you name it. And while we may think these are nonpartisan races, there's no such thing anymore in this environment of a nonpartisan office. Every office has been politicized. So when I talk about getting the DNC out of DC, it's making sure that we are competing in every part of this country, in all 3,244 counties, that we're not leaving any behind. And more importantly, we are taking a holistic view on how we build power. We cannot keep being indifferent to school boards, as an example. You know this better than anyone, Lee. I mean, for God's sake, some of the biggest school districts in this country have been taken over by these far-right nuts who are banning books and changing curriculum, whitewashing history, attacking our children, right? There are real consequences to our own indifference as a national party. So, of course, there are many advocacy groups and organizations that are involved in this work for sure. But the role of the Democratic National Party is to build long-lasting and durable infrastructure so we win. That is the role. That is our goal. And frankly, that's what the DNC has to be doing, right? I'll share one story with you. In 23, I was down in Mississippi with Brandon Presley, our candidate for governor there. He was tied with Tate Reeves, the Republican, about 2 months before the election. And I asked him, what more could the DNC be doing to be helpful to you in this moment? And he said, look, years of indifference and disinvestment in southern states has led to this moment now where there's no infrastructure on the ground to help me. So I have to build it all myself. That's shameful. We should never be in a position where candidates don't have something on the ground that they can tap into, so they don't have to spend money on everything. And that is, frankly, what we're focused on, the nuts and bolts organizing of making sure that we're competing up and down the ballot and we're building long-lasting and durable infrastructure so we win again. And I hate to say this, but guess what? Coming in second or losing by less does nothing for people's lives. I used to work for a guy named Paul Wellstone. That's what was my first campaign in 1990. And you know what? Paul used to say that you can strip everything away, but really what politics is about is the improvement of people's lives. If we don't win elections, we can't make a difference. And so that's what we have to get back to realizing here. Now, at the same time, we do have to resist and stand up, and we have to throw a punch. At this moment right now, Lee, when people in this country are so worried of what they're seeing with Trump and Musk in Washington, people want to see the Democratic Party fight. And I'll tell you, when the stakes are so high, they've higher than they've ever been, if they don't see our party fighting now and resisting at this moment, how in the hell are they going to believe us when they say, put us in power and we'll fight for you then? No, we need to be in this fight right now. We need to stand up with our brothers and sisters in the movement, in solidarity, pushing back as hard as we can against what we're seeing from Trump and Musk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing is that you were saying in the campaign for DNC chair that one of your biggest concerns coming out of the 2024 election was America's perception of the two parties, right? That they had switched somehow, that people somehow think the Republicans are the party of the working class and Democrats are the party of the elites, which of course, based on policy, couldn't be further from the truth. So what do we do about that? Because the Republicans clearly have used their extraordinary messaging machine to paint the Democrats as the enemy. So how does the party then redefine itself under those constraints?
Well, I think it's really important to realize, and I don't know when this happened, Lee, but our party started to message to smaller and smaller parts of our coalition, right? And while I think that worked to a certain degree, what we lost is the thing that connects all parts of our coalition, all of these disparate groups of folks, right? In Minnesota, I'll use an example. I mean, what connects a corn farmer in southern Minnesota with a steel worker on the Iron Range with a new refugee in the Twin Cities? It's economics, right? It's kitchen table issues. It's a belief in the American dream, the belief that if you work hard, no matter where you're from, no matter where you live, no matter who you are or who you love, you should be able to actually achieve economic success and climb the economic ladder, build a better life for your family, right? Yet so many people right now, and this has been happening for some years, so many people who are part of our coalition feel that they can't achieve that American dream, that there are obstacles in their way, that they're being forgotten and left behind, right? They're working their asses off. They're working harder than they ever have before, and they don't feel seen or heard by a government, whether it's state and local government or the federal government. They don't feel seen or heard by politicians. The low level of trust in institutions and politicians right now is a direct correlation to the fact that people's lives aren't getting better, right? So at the end of the day, it's twofold in terms of how we do this. One is we have to be present in community much earlier than just 4 months before an election. Lee, when I came up in politics in the 90s, the conventional wisdom at that time was you show up, in 4 to 5 months before an election because that's when people are paying attention, right? Well, and sure enough, undecided voters broke in the last 2 weeks. So you'd flood the zone with organizing, you'd flood the zone with paid media and earned media. But it did not do what we needed to, which was to build long-lasting and durable relationships with voters. So we cannot show up 4 months before an election and the first conversation we have with someone is asking them to do something for us, to vote for our candidates or our party. How the hell? I mean, think about this. Why are we losing ground with Latino voters? Why are we losing ground with young voters? Why are we losing ground with every single demographic group? There's a million reasons, but one is because they only see us during an election, usually the last few months, and when they hear from us, we're asking them for something in return. And then they don't see us again for 2 years. They feel like we're using them for their vote versus actually caring a shit about what's happening in their lives. So we've got to get back to actually showing them that we give a damn. Being present, having a permanent campaign where we are year-round organizing like we do in Minnesota, right? We have a permanent campaign where we're showing up on shows like this and information spaces all the time to get the message out, not just during an election year, right? We have to realize, Lee, that we live in a perpetual campaign now. As crazy as it is, as much as I wish it wasn't so, right? Because we all need a break from the craziness of this. But the reality is we're in a perpetual campaign, which requires us to have a permanent campaign mindset. The second part of that is not just campaigning all the time. The second part of it is actually delivering on the promises we make to people. And there's such a disillusionment amongst people in our party that they keep voting for Democrats, yet when Democrats are in power, they don't use the power to make a difference. That's why I'm so proud of what Governor Walz and our legislative leaders did in Minnesota. We sat down right after the trifecta in 22 and we said, you know what? God damn it. Power is fleeting. We have power. Let's use it to make the biggest difference we can for as many people as we can. Not in a cavalier way, right? But in a way that actually improves people's lives and makes a difference. When more and more Americans see Democrats willing to actually stand up, stiffen their spine, and deliver on the promises, and even when we're not in majorities, to stand up and fight for what you believe in, then they will start supporting us again.
Yeah. And you look at a state like yours where you're giving children's school lunches. You've got Governor Walz surrounded by all those kids that are going to get fed at lunch. And it's one of the best states in the nation to do business.
That's
so you don't have to make a deal with the devil to do both things. You can help everybody at once if you use your power for good. I mean, I look at you and Ben Wickler, who also ran for chair. You're both successful party leaders who had to basically start from scratch in states that have been all but taken over by Republican leadership, using undemocratic practices like gerrymandering and voter suppression. And clearly, your and Ben's successes in Wisconsin and Minnesota are what's possible for the whole nation. So having done that at the state level and now being in charge of a federal party, in charge of the entire country, how do you use those skills you learned to then take those unfair practices that are happening nationwide and start building it up from the ground again? This podcast is sponsored by MD Hearing. And in a world where people voted to lower the cost of eggs and gas, but we've now doubled the cost of eggs and gas is about to go through the roof, one thing that isn't going to be more expensive are hearing aids if you buy them from MD Hearing. MD Hearing makes high-quality, easy-to-use, rechargeable hearing aids with exceptional sound quality that are personalized to your hearing profile, and they have cut their prices in half. In fact, MD Hearing just made their Neo rechargeable digital hearing aids only $297 a pair. That's over 90% less than in-clinic hearing aids. MD Hearing was founded by an ENT surgeon who saw how many of his patients needed hearing aids but couldn't afford them. So he made it his mission to develop a high-quality hearing aid that was affordable to anyone. Now, MD Hearing has sold over 2 million hearing aids and offers a 45-day risk-free trial with a 100% money-back guarantee, so you can buy them with confidence or recommend them to someone with confidence. And if there was any question, MD Hearing was just selected to be the hearing aid supplier for their top Medicare Advantage plans, so you know it's a brand you can trust. So get the high-quality, affordable hearing aids you deserve with MD Hearing. Go to shopmdhearing.com and use the promo code PoliticsGirl to get a pair of hearing aids for just $297. Plus, they're adding in a free extra charging case, a $100 value, just for listeners of PoliticsGirl. That is shopmdhearing.com and use the promo code PoliticsGirl to get a pair of hearing aids for just $297. Now, I've talked to you guys about my dog before. I am borderline obsessed with this dog because he is the best boy ever, which makes me very picky about what I feed him because I want him to be happy and around as long as possible. But my dog is also very picky, so he doesn't like to eat the same time every day and he likes to have a variation on his food. So I have taken to keeping Sundays for dogs in my office. Sometimes Chips won't eat his breakfast in the morning, but by midday he feels hungry, so he gets Sundays for dogs in his office dog bowl. The thing about Sundays for Dogs is it's a healthy dog food that's easy to store and serve. It's a fresh dog food made from a short list of human-grade ingredients, co-founded by a practicing veterinarian who tests and formulates every version of each recipe. Sundays contains 90% meat, 10% superfoods, and 0% synthetic nutrients or artificial ingredients. Chips loves the chicken and the beef, and I switch back and forth so he doesn't get bored. And unlike other dog foods, Sundays doesn't require refrigeration or preparation because of their air drying process. So you just pour and serve. It's good for on the go, it's good for travel, and in my case, it's good for the office. Sundays for Dogs is a subscription service where you get free shipping with every reorder, and you can cancel or pause anytime with their 100% satisfaction guarantee. Every order ships right to your door, so you never have to worry about running out of dog food again. The new year is not just the perfect time for us humans to make healthy changes, but for your pup as well. Get 40% off a 2-week trial of Sundays by going to sundaysfordogs.com/politicsgirl or using the code PoliticsGirl at checkout. That's 40% off your first order at sundaysfordogs.com/politicsgirl. So I still haven't fixed the blinds in my bedroom, but it's now on my radar. As I keep saying, with all the ugly in the world, I've been spending my very limited downtime looking at bedrooms for something pretty, and I want to start with my windows. Which is why I'm happy to tell people about 3-Day Blinds, who are the leading manufacturer of custom window treatments in the US and make upgrading your blinds, shades, shutters, and drapery easy breezy and painless. If you're not handy, that's no problem. Their team handles all the heavy lifting, design measurements, installation. You just sit back and get upgraded windows. You want help deciding what fits best in your home? Their professional design consultants, each with over 10 years of experience, will guide you to the perfect solution from the comfort of your house. Plus, they will give you a free, no-obligation quote that same day. Right now, you can get a buy one, get one 50% off deal on custom window treatments. So whether you're looking for modern motorized blinds that sync with your smart home, or chic Roman shades that tie a room together, or just something to upgrade a little bit better than you have in, say, my bedroom, then 3-Day Blinds has thousands of options for every style and budget. Right now, get quality window treatments that fit your budget with 3-Day Blinds. Head to 3dayblinds.com/politicsgirl for their buy one, get one 50% off deal on customs blinds, shades, shutters, and drapery. For a free, no charge, no obligation consultation, just head to 3dayblinds.com/politicsgirl. One last time, that is buy one, get one 50% off when you head to the number 3, dayblinds.com/politicsgirl. How do you use those skills you learned to then take those unfair practices that are happening nationwide and start building it up from the ground again?
Well, I think it's exactly what you just said. I mean, taking some of what we're doing, both in Minnesota, Wisconsin, there's other state parties that have been doing great work as well, and scaling that up to the national party, right? We can do this. We can run a permanent campaign, right, that really focuses in, again, more holistically on competing and contesting races up and down the ballot in a way that allows us to build power. Again, for me, it's easier said than done, right? In the sense that I don't think the national party, they've been so focused, as long as I've been part of the DNC, which is these last 14 years, the DNC has been really focused just on federal offices. And we can't do that any longer. So we're leaving, state legislative seats empty. We're leaving congressional seats and gubernatorial races without the support they need. We're leaving mayoralships and school boards, as I mentioned. So we have to do a lot more. And part of that is building the infrastructure the way that we've done in places like Minnesota and Wisconsin, year-round organizing, talking to voters all the time, being present in community, running communications all the time. And, these information spaces, Ben's really good at this. And in fact, I hope to bring him into this conversation about making sure in this new information environment we live in, that we are actually competing in ways that the Republicans have frankly outwitted us on in these last several years. I'll just say, one of the things they've done really well, in addition to building power at local levels and organizing all the time, is they are about 5 or 6 years ago, they started to make the shift. We saw the entertainment industry do this years before, which is recognizing that 90% of Americans have smartphones. So they started moving all their content, entertainment industries, into streaming services and into these new information spaces. And of course, politics is always lagging behind where corporate America or in the entertainment industry is. But I saw the Republicans make this shift about 5 years ago. And they, right after the 2020 election, they started beating the shit out of Joe Biden and the Democratic Party and all of these new information spaces we weren't even present on. The campaign, the Democratic Party, surrogates, none of us were present in these spaces. And so for 3 years, they had unfettered access to essentially spread their lies, their misinformation, and beat the hell out of us. And then again, because we think the campaign starts in an election year, we show up in the election year feeling like we can actually then catch up. Well, they've already defined us before we defined ourselves. That can never happen again. So again, part of it's the permanent campaign that I talked about. It's not just organizing, it's the communication side of this as well. So
yeah, it's the communication side, because I think when you talk about a permanent campaign, I think you're right. I think a lot of people are like, my God, like, make politics be over. Like, do I have to get texts 365 days a year asking me for money? Like, this is insane. And I think it comes back down to this idea about money in politics. It's difficult, let's say, to look at where America is in this moment with a billionaire criminal president who the Supreme Court, many of whom are in bed with billionaire donors themselves, have deemed him above the law. He has a cabinet with a collective self-worth of $480 billion. The richest man in the world is acting as this unelected bureaucrat, seemingly in charge of every aspect of our federal government. You go, okay, like, money in politics has clearly gotten way out of hand. You have personally said that there's too much money in politics, that it's playing this corrosive role in our democracy, and that it should be a priority for our party to try and end Citizens United, which, if people don't know, is the controversial 2010 Supreme Court ruling that basically allowed corporations and outside groups to spend unlimited money on elections. So how do you propose we do that? Because I do want us to have a permanent presence in all 50 states and to go out to the territories, right? I want us to be there talking about issues, making sure people know that we care about the things that they want. Because I often say, the reason the Democrats didn't win in this last election isn't because they didn't have the better candidates, the better ideas, or the majority sense of the nation. It's because people didn't, for some reason, know. And in many ways, that's because the Republicans are, as you said, allowed to define us before we can define ourselves. So if you didn't know that we were the party of unions and a higher minimum wage and paid family leave and taking care of your family and affordable health care, then that's on us, right? We blew it. Not because we don't stand for those things, but because people didn't know those things. So with this much money in politics, how do you propose that we get out of that? Because right now, maybe campaign finance reform, maybe trying to get rid of Citizens United, but with the conservative corporate aligned Democrats themselves, we do have that group, right? It often feels like we can't properly fight this rising oligarchy because we're too worried about upsetting our own oligarchs, right? So like, how do you balance that?
Well, I think, one, we have to live our values. And so first, you mentioned what we need to fight for. Obviously, we need to end Citizens United. We need significant campaign finance overhaul in this country because the finance system is broken. And BICRA, the McCain-Feingold Act in 2002, certainly tried to do that, but it's not working right now. And we have seen so much of this has been pushed out to these unaccountable dark money groups in ways, again, that is having a corrosive impact. I believe, actually, you should be increasing the amount of money that candidates and parties can take because they're closest to the voter and they're the most regulated, right? Meaning they have to report everything that they raise and spend. The sunlight is the greatest disinfectant. And again, candidate campaigns and parties can't hide what they're doing. All of these dark money groups can, and that's part of the problem we have here. So one, there's no accountability. You need to get rid of dark money groups, and you actually need to reverse the limits because as crazy as it is, I'm not for more money in politics at all. I'd like to see us get to full public financing of our campaign system. But we should recognize that there's greater accountability, like I said, with those closest to the voters, and those are regulated. And so you should actually, instead of being punitive to parties and to candidates, you should actually increase their limits. You see, these dark money groups have no limits. They're not regulated in any way. They can take as much as they want, spend it on whatever the hell they want with no accountability back to the voters or to any regulatory agencies. So to level the playing field, you actually have to increase the amount that parties and candidates can take so they can have as a little bit more of a voice in this process. And I know that sounds crazy. The second piece we need to do, in addition to a campaign finance overhaul and in Citizens United, is we should only take money from people who share our values, right? Meaning that there's been a lot of candidates on the Democratic side who take money from people who don't share our values. And I was very clear, the DNC will not take money from companies that are union busters, right? Or people who own companies that are union busters. We won't take money from companies or people that are polluting our environment and killing our planet, as an example, right? And so for me, it's really important that we live our values through the contributions we're raising. And the last thing we need to do is really increase the amount of money we raise through small donor contributions, through grassroots fundraising, right? And that's really important because we want more people to feel like they have a voice in politics. And if they give their $10, $15, $20 a month, that it's making a difference. Look, the issue last election was not money for the Democratic Party. We spent $2.5 billion on a presidential race. $2.5 billion. In 2024 alone, Lee, there was over $10 billion spent on just Democratic races up and down the ballot. $10 billion. I mean, that's freaking crazy.
It's obscene. It's obscene.
We got to reverse course. So, I don't know how to do that until we win elections.
Yeah, exactly. If you win elections, then you put in things like the John Lewis Voting Rights Act or the For the People Act, and you start taking dark money out of politics and making gerrymandering illegal and making Election Day a national holiday and, cutting off these dark money groups at the knees and saying, if you want to donate to a campaign, here's the candidate you can donate to. I am on your side. I would love to see public funded elections where everyone has the same amount of money and you can only advertise for a certain period of time. You look at somewhere like London, or if you're having an election in the UK, it's like you got 6 weeks and, at the last week, you can't even be on social media or in the advertising at all. Like, people have to know what your positions are. And then we're not completely inundated all the time. I'm sure everyone in America would be like, oh my God, please make it, 6 months max. Like, let me have my back to my life, right? But I also think that it's spending money on things to build relationships and not just build a coffer where a bunch of consultants make a bunch of money and buy a beach house, right? Like, more face-to-face door knocking, more neighborhood, neighbor to neighbor, not not flying in operatives to talk to a stranger, but people that have relationships with people. I like the idea that it seems that all of the candidates that were on the DNC chair race were talking about more organization with the state parties, more organizations with people that are on the ground in each one of the states. So that you say, instead of the DNC dictating to the states what we need from you, the states can say to the DNC, here's what we need from the DNC. We can see that we need people in these rural areas of Kentucky, or we can see that this Mississippi governor actually has a chance. Send us money to deal with that, get more voting out, get more people registered, get more people here, there, or the other place. And that's from the people on the ground. And are you willing, because it seemed like everyone that was running really got that it wasn't going to be top down. It had to be states up.
That's right. And I think that's the other way to get at the corrosive impact of money is when you build from the grassroots, right? It's much harder for money to work in the very negative ways that it does when you've built a relationship with voters around shared values and trust, right? It's harder for them to demonize the Democratic Party when they know their neighbor, who's a big Democrat, has, invested enough in the conversation and the relationship over years to talk to them about their hopes and dreams and their concerns, right? And so for me, as an organizer, that's the title that I cherish the most, right? Is an organizer, a grassroots organizer, understanding that that's the way we have to build a party from the ground up, not the top down. And as you mentioned, the state parties, I led the state parties for the last 8 years as the president of the ASDC, the Association of State Democratic Committees. I believe in all of our state parties, and I believe they're a critical nexus to the work that all of our organizations in DC and our committees in DC should be working with more. That means for me in 2017, when I came in, think about this. And in 2017, the DNC, after that election in 16, was $70 million in debt. The data infrastructure was way behind the Republicans, and the state parties had been hollowed out by OFA and Organizing for America those 8 years prior. And so the infrastructure was really terrible. What I immediately went and did is I wrote a 57 state party strategy, our 50 states plus our territories and Democrats abroad. And those investments are the deepest investments ever in the history of our party. And they've made a tremendous difference in already building up strong state parties and the infrastructure there. We now need to dig deeper, right? We need to build up our county parties, right? And eventually, we need to start getting even more local and granular in the sense that we used to have a very well-developed precinct system throughout this country that had precinct chairs and captains all throughout this country. It's probably not realistic to do that, but we should be supporting our state parties and our county parties throughout this nation in more ways than we've done even these last 8 years, which was historic. And so I plan to do that as not the next DNC chair. I am the DNC
as the DNC chair.
Yes.
Well, listen, that's the thing. I think we do need a new way of looking at things. I think the Democrats, but particularly the DNC, has often come off as too old school. Like, this is how we've always done it. We know what's best. Don't rock the boat. But after this last election, it's very clearly not true, right? You didn't know what was best. Not you personally. You were not in charge. But it's well past time for change, right? So we're at this part. There was one candidate who made me laugh, James Scofis, who was in the race with you, because he reminded me of when you go on a reality show and you're like, I'm not here to make friends, like he made me laugh because he was just saying everything that was on people's minds, right? And one of the things he said was, we have to throw out this old, stale DC playbook and we have to listen to the voters and less to DC consultants. And I really kind of appreciated that because I feel like sometimes people are like, well, in the Beltway. And I'm like, most people don't know what the frickin' Beltway is. Stop saying that, right? Like, it feels like we are living in the 1990s and the Democrats are trying to run some manual that was written 30 years ago and it doesn't work, right? We just lost the biggest election of our lifetime. A bunch of consultants made bank. And now we have all of these old school, vendors who think that they're still going to carry on with the Democrats. And I kind of liked the idea of being like, no, none of you get guaranteed contracts. We're starting fresh. We're doing something new. We're going to spend our money differently because we clearly missed the people in this machine. And we got to get back to that. This episode of the Politics Girl podcast is brought to you by Wild Grain. Wild Grain is the first bake from frozen subscription box for artisanal breads, pastries, and pastas. Wild Grain boxes are fully customizable to your taste and dietary restrictions, and in addition to their classic variety box, which my family gets and just got yesterday, woohoo! They've also launched a new gluten-free box and a plant-based box that is 100% vegan. I love the idea of having fresh baked bread and pastries ready to go in under 25 minutes. I like their sourdough and their chocolate croissants and the bread and the baguettes. I love the cookies, and it's really nice to have some fresh baked pastries on the weekend. If you're ready to have your favorite carbs delivered right to your doorstep, be sure to check out Wild Grain so you can begin building your own box of artisanal breads and pastas and pastries. For limited time, Wild Grain is offering our listeners $30 off their first box, plus free croissants in every box when you go to wildgrain.com/politicsgirl to start your subscription. Yep, you heard me. That's free croissants in every box and $30 off your first box when you go to wildgrain.com/politicsgirl. That's wildgrain.com/politicsgirl. The Politics Girl podcast has a new sponsor, Faye. And I'm excited to be partnering with them because I think a lot of people feel like they could change their relationship with food, but they don't know how. Faye is a revolutionary program that connects you with your own personal registered dietitian, making expert nutritional guidance accessible and affordable. So whether you're looking to help lose weight, improve your general health, or manage your health conditions, Faye has a dietitian right for you. And the best part is all the dietitians on Faye accept insurance, with over 700 plus insurance plans included, so you will likely pay $0 out of pocket for this incredible service. If you are tired of those one-size-fit-all diet plans or the generic nutritional advice, I think you will find that the dietitians at Faye are different because they work with you one-on-one to create a customized program that is tailored specifically to you for your needs. It's more than a diet plan because these dietitians are focusing on clinically proven methods to improve your relationship with food that will instill positive long-term habits. And it works. 93% of clients reported an improved relationship with food, and 85% reached their target weight. A third-party study showed that Faye clients lost almost 3 times more weight working with their dietitian compared to a comparable weight loss program. With dietitians that specialize in over 30 areas, including weight loss, sports nutrition, women's health, postpartum, gut disorders, and eating disorders, and offer both virtual and in-person sessions, you can customize your Faye experience to whatever is the most convenient and best suited to you. So achieve lasting results with the help of a registered dietitian through Faye. Listeners of Politics Girl can qualify to see a registered dietitian for as little as $0 by visiting faynutrition.com/politicsgirl. That's faynutrition.com/politicsgirl. One last time, that's faynutrition.com/politicsgirl. And make sure you use my URL so they know I sent you. We clearly missed the people in this machine, and we got to get back to that.
Well, listen, and James is a great friend, and I will say this: he's not wrong, and we all
and he's fiery and ballsy. I liked it.
Yeah,
it was great.
Me too. And here's what I would say, Lee. I mean, the reality is most of those DC consultants, they've never spoken to a voter. They've never set foot in any of these states. I mean, they couldn't tell me how to do my job here in Minnesota, that's for sure. But the reality is they're also trading on, very old practices and tactics because there's a perverse profit incentive in politics, right? And we see this. Look, I'm 51 years old. I still read a hard copy of a newspaper, right? So my kids think I'm a little bit of a dinosaur that way. But I will tell you what I don't do. I don't watch broadcast TV anymore. I haven't watched broadcast TV in years. Yet guess what? You know where most of those DC consultants continue to spend our money? On broadcast TV. Now, I'm a hunter, and I say this to folks. People ask me, well, where do you go to hunt? And they think I'm going to tell my favorite deer stand or my favorite hunting spot. No. You know where you go to hunt? Where the deer are. Where do you go to get to people where they're at? Guess what? They're not on broadcast TV. All of these consultants, in fact, this is what we're doing here these first 2 weeks that I've been on, is going through every consultant contract line by line. And most of them are going to be gone because they provide absolutely no value or service. And the only thing they care about is lining their own pockets versus winning. And I've said this to the staff, and I said this to consultants. If you're not bringing me a plan to win, go pound sand, because at the end of the day, I'm not spending money. There are people literally giving us $10, $15, $20 a month because they believe in this Democratic Party, right, and our values, and they want us to win. So if we're not winning, then we shouldn't be doing it. I say to every organization I've ever run, whether it's campaigns I've run up and down the ballot here, the DFL the last 14 years, and now the DNC, if we're doing things that aren't about winning elections, we should stop doing them. And that's true of consultants, by the way, as well. I'd rather put more money into shows like yours and to influencers and to content creators and people who are actually reaching folks than the same stale old practices that I don't even know how you measure anymore. The metrics are so flawed. I mean, there's a lot to say on this other than to say that the bottom line for me is this. They're more interested in making money than anything else. And that's a damn shame.
It is a damn shame. I completely agree with you. And I love to hear that you say that, because it pleased me when James said it on the campaign trail. It pleased me when all the people who were running for DNC chair agreed with that. I was thrilled to hear that all the candidates, when I listened to your forum on January 11th, and all of you talked for a couple of hours, and it seemed like every single one of the people looking to run the DNC we're like, let's stop doing this swing state thing. Let's stop doing this red and blue state thing. Why do we keep ceding what we call red states to these Republicans without a fight? This idea of us being in every state and talking to every voter all year long and building relationships with communities rather than, as you were saying, pulling in right before an election and asking for a vote that we haven't earned. Marianne Williamson, who is one of the other candidates that you worked with, she had said something that really resonated with people during that campaign. And she said that Democrats need a cohesive worldview, that Republicans have a cohesive worldview. It's an abhorrent worldview, but it's cohesive, right? And the people need to be clear about what the Democrats stand for. And I really can't argue with her when she says that, because, all of you that were in the chair's race agreed that we can't keep looking at the voters like these are low propensity voters and these are swing voters and these are Democrats and these are Republicans. We have to look at the voters as people and speak to the people's needs, right? And we kind of stopped doing that because, as you said, people are in many ways in it for like, oh, I can make some money here, or oh, I can do this. And this idea that, of course, there's going to be certain groups with certain needs and we're going to need to speak to them. But we shouldn't decide that this group or that group doesn't matter because they don't fit into our electoral calculation and it's all just math. And, we just really need this little group of voters, because people can tell when you show up because they need, you need this vote, that they're just numbers on a spreadsheet and it comes off as inauthentic. And I think that inauthenticity is something that Democrats struggle with. The Republicans suck, but you believe they are who they are. Right? And that's something that I think at this point we need to really embrace. Like, if you didn't know that we're here for you, let us tell you now. That kind of a feel.
No, that's exactly right. And I think authenticity is something that people thirst for in politics, right? In fact, they're willing to give you the benefit of the doubt, even if they disagree with you on issues, because they know it's something you believe in, right? And it's not you being disingenuous or, doing one of these where you stick your finger in the wind to see which way it's blowing, right? Wellstone was that way. And, people voted for him here in Minnesota. They didn't agree with him on every issue, but they just loved that he was willing to stand up and fight for what he believed in. I think that's true of my governor. Governor Walz, the same thing, right? People view him, as very authentic, and they disagree with him on things for sure. But authenticity matters. Also being a strong leader with a spine who's willing to say what is on their mind and is not trying to couch their words. I do actually think, in a weird, perverse way, that's why Donald Trump has some of the following he does, because people view him as authentic, strong, and someone who doesn't give a damn about what other people think about what he thinks. He's going to say what's on his mind. And Democrats, we try to, I don't know how these people are going to think if I say it this way. Look, I think we just have to stand up and actually, what? One of my old mentors said this: never separate the life you lead from the words you speak. That is something that I've really tried to abide in my life, which is, stand up and speak your truth and your values and what you believe, and then live them as well. And I think that's an important lesson for Democrats right now.
I agree with you, Ken. And honestly, I always say, I think we can be humble about a loss without being apologetic, right? Like, I'm watching consultants now talking about like throwing people under the bus. Maybe we got too woke. Maybe we don't talk so much about trans people or gay people. Maybe we don't talk about, women's rights. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you can say we are the party for everyone without, getting into the weeds of it all the time,
Right.
being like, we want you to be who you are and love who you love and make money and have a good life. That's what we're here for. Like, ultimately, we want your schools to be good, your opportunities to be open. We want your kids to be happy and healthy and have a roof over their heads. We want you to be well fed and cared for. That's what your government should be doing so that you are free to pursue this happiness that you were promised. And we don't think this is just a nation for this top few people at the top. We think this is a nation for all of us. And if you didn't know that from us, then let us tell you now. And I think that is where we need to be right now, and not throwing anyone under the bus. Like, ultimately, people don't like weakness, but they do like humility and self-deprecation. I think, Democrats should be out here telling people that they're the party where everyone is accepted, and that acceptance isn't veered off into weird virtue signaling where we come off like some scolding hall monitors, right? We don't want to do that anymore. Like, we don't want to be like, listen, this isn't how we, everyone hates that. Like, just, we don't need to do that anymore. It's a lot. It's too much chirp, chirp, chirp. I think when people think about Democrats as being the elitist party, it's not because of money, because clearly that's the Republicans. They have all the money. They have the billionaires. They're serving the billionaire class. I think we come off as intellectually elite, like snobby smarty pantses, and people hate that. And so I think if we are going down to the grassroots level again and talking to people and saying, like, what is it that you need and how is it that we can help you? And you know what's interesting? Because that is what we really want to do for you. That is where people are going to go, maybe I don't hate the Democrats. Have I been taught to hate the Democrats? And we can say, yes, you have been taught to hate the Democrats, right?
I love it.
I think at the end, like, I so appreciate it. You said on the campaign trail that Democrats need a workhorse, not a show pony to run the DNC. We need someone who's willing to do the work on the ground, who's not just aching to be in front of the camera and get their face out there all the time. And I'm very pleased you got the job, Ken, because I think you get it. And we really need someone to get it right now, because Democrats are feeling defeated and they're feeling a bit rudderless and leaderless. And it's nice to know that you're out here and you get it. So please tell people how we can help you get our country back on track, how we can help push your mission forward to really, really start from scratch and build something that people can be proud of.
Well, let me give you 5 key things that people can do right now in this moment. Moment right now. Okay. And there's a lot of other ways you can help me and the DNC. But the first thing is fill state and local party committee seats. We have thousands of vacancies in our local parties and our state parties right now. Help us build the army that we need to win up and down the ballot in 25 and 26. So first thing is contact your state party and ask if there are any vacancies that you can help fill. Be a part of the solution, right? And the best way to do that is join your local party. 2, show up to town halls that Democratic elected officials are having right now to show your support for the work that they're doing to push back on Musk and Trump and their illegal and unconstitutional actions. This is really important because our Democratic elected officials are standing up right now. They don't have power in Congress, but they're standing up and using the platforms and the power they have to push back and do everything they can to fight back against these illegal actions. We need to show them that we support them, right? Oftentimes, Democrats turn on each other first. Right now, it's important that we show them that we support their actions so that they continue to push as hard as they can. 3, show up and protest at local Musk and Trump businesses, i.e. Tesla dealerships, Trump hotels, golf courses, and other properties, right? Let's take the fight to the Republicans. I'm sick and tired of Democrats being, good government types just sitting back and waiting for things to come to them. Let's take the fight to the Republicans and make them have a little bit of economic pain, both Trump and Musk. Show up at their properties, show up at their businesses, make sure they know that you don't like what they're doing. 4th is show up and engage in online communities and other information spaces. Be part of the conversation. Push back, be loud, and combat the misinformation and disinformation that the Republicans continue to spew. This is one of our biggest weaknesses. We don't do this well, and we need to get into all of our online communities and spaces and push back on the bullshit. The last thing is we have elections coming up right now in Florida 1 and Florida 6. Call the Florida Democratic Party or visit them at floridadems.org and sign up for a volunteer shift. The public mood and sentiment has shifted significantly in the last 3 weeks. And as crazy as it is, yes, these are Republican-leaning districts, but we can win. And if we win 1 or 2 of those, right, now we're in a better position to take the U.S. House back. And that is the first line of defense of stopping Trump and Musk, is winning back the U.S. House. Of course, all those other races There's over 100,000 local races on the ballot this year. And so my point is this. Those are 5 things you can do today. If you're looking to get involved and do something, do one of those things, do all 5 of them. If you're looking for more, give me a call or send me an email because I have a much larger list. But those are 5 actionable things you can do right now.
Thank you so much, Ken. I appreciate that. And people can probably go to, is it DNC.com? Where should they go?
DNC.org. Yep. And sign up to volunteer there.
So people can go to dnc.org and sign up to volunteer and see what else Ken has past his 5 things. But thank you for giving us action items, because it's action, we always say, that is the antithesis to apathy. People want to shut down, but you give them things to do and they're willing to do them because they know this isn't right. So thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for taking on this role at this hellacious moment in political history. But we really appreciate you standing up and standing up for all of us.
Thank you, Lee. It's just a delight to be on, and I hope you'll have me back.
Absolutely. We can't wait. We'll start talking about the wins.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you.
So that was Ken Martin, the new chair of the DNC and a man with a plan. I love these grassroots organizer leaders who aren't in it for the FaceTime on the cameras or the big donor dinner parties, but are the people willing to reimagine how something has always been to how something could be. As Ken said, ultimately the number one goal for the DNC is to win, to beat back this horrible far-right extremist Republican Party so we can start making real change from a place of power. To do that, Ken's plan is to get the DNC out of DC and back to the states, all the states, back to the people. We have to be present in communities at all levels and working with state parties to help build the infrastructure for Democrats to actually win. I want to thank Ken for joining us today and you for caring enough about democracy to be here. Now take one or all of Ken's 5 suggestions and take action to wake us up from this national nightmare. Until next week, PG out. Before you go, I just want to say, if you're a premium member of this podcast, thank you. And if you're not a member, please consider supporting my work. As Ken said, we need the new independent voices out here telling you the truth. We are almost completely overwhelmed by state-supporting legacy media and propaganda at this point, so it's essential those of us out here still bringing you the facts are supported. So if you aren't a member of PoliticsGirl Premium, please consider going to politicsgirl.com and signing up. You will get this podcast ad-free, along with my rants and bonus content sent directly to your inbox. So even if my work is silenced on social media, you will still get access to the truth. There is a link to sign up in the bio of this episode, but also at politicsgirl.com. And as always, please like and share this podcast so we can grow our audience, because the more people who have access to this kind of information, the better. Thank you, as always, for your time and support. The Politics Girl podcast is written and performed by me, Lee McGowan, in partnership with the Meidas Media Network, and produced and edited by Happy Warrior Entertainment. All rights reserved.